talking about the Sales of Goods Act. So originally, the transactions related to sale and purchase of goods was regulated by Section 76 to 123 of ICA 1872, which was broadly based on English common law. So a need was felt to overhaul the law due to rapid growth of mercantile transactions and various progressive English judgments being passed to meet the needs of the community. Hence, the provision.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, slide isn't visible.
Okay, wait. So Sales of Goods Act, according to Section 1872, like they said that this was broadly based on English common law. A need was felt to overhaul the law due to rapid growth of mercantile transactions and various progressive English judgments being passed to the needs of the community. So suitably amended, keeping in the mind the English Sale of Goods 1893 and recent judicial decisions of the time, a separate Sales of Goods Act came into force on July 1st, 1930. So it extends to whole of India except the state of J&K, Jammu and Kashmir. It does not affect rights, interests, obligations, and titles acquired before the commencement of the Act. The Act deals with sale, but not with mortgage or pledge of the goods. So Sales of Goods Act 1930 herein referred to as an act in the law that governs the sales of goods in all parts of India. It doesn't apply to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. This act defines the various terms which are contained in the act as well. So Section 4 of Sales of Goods Act 1930 define a Sales of Goods Act, a contract of sale whereby the seller transfers or agrees to transfer the property in the goods to the buyer for the price. So the term contract of sale includes both a sale and agreement to sell. So the two parties involved in the contract act of sale, that is the buyer and the seller. Like I want to sell my property to you, you are the buyer. So the dealing between us, that will be the Sales of Goods Act. The obligations, the rules, the regulations to be followed for that particular contract. So a contract of sale is made by an offer to buy or sell goods for a price and the acceptance of such offer by the other party. So the contract may be oral or in writing. A contract of sale may be absolute or conditional. So formalities of contract of sale, Section 5 of the Act specifically provides the following three steps of formalities in contract of sale. First one is the offer and the acceptance. Like if I offer to you to give my house at rupees 30 lakh, if you accept that offer, that is the dealing between us, the offer and an acceptance. So a contract of sale is made by an offer to buy or sell the goods for a price and acceptance of such offer. Delivery and the payment. So it is not necessary that payment for the goods to the seller and the delivery to the buyer must be simultaneously. So it's not mandatory that if I say that when I deliver you the goods, you have to pay me the money on the same day, on the same time. So it can't go simultaneously. It depends about the person to person. It depends upon the time, or else you can pay on installments as well as per the contract. So it is not necessary that payment for the goods to the seller and the delivery of goods to the buyer must be simultaneous. They can be made at different times or in the installments as per the contract. So it can be expressed or implied. The contract can be in writing, oral, or implied. It can also be partly oral and partly written. So these are the main formalities of contract of sale. Just go through the meaning once. So talking about the essentials, the 5 essential features of the contract of the sale can be discussed below. First one is the two parties. Definitely there will be the two parties in the contract of sale. One will be the buyer, another one will be the seller. So So a sale has to be bilateral because the goods have to pass from one person to another. There must be a buyer, a person who buys or agrees to buy the goods, and seller, a person who sells or agrees to sell the goods. So the seller and the buyer must be different persons. A part owner can sell to another part owner. A partner may therefore sell to his firm, or firm may sell to the partner. But if joint owners distribute the property among themselves as a mutual agreement, it is not the sale. Why? Because that's just the transferability of ownership from one partner to another partner. So a person cannot be a seller of his own goods as well as the buyer of the sale. Therefore, in the contract of sale, two people are needed, and provided that two people should be different. One is the buyer, another one is the seller. However, when a bankrupt person's goods are sold under an execution of decree, the person may buy back his own goods from his trustee. Next, subject matter to goods. So the term goods So the term goods is defined in section 2(7). It states that goods mean every kind of movable property other than the actionable claims and money. The thing regarding which, the good regarding which there is the dealing, there is a sales of contract act, that should be movable property. That neither should be the immovable one, and includes stock and shares, growing crops, grass and things attached to a forming part of land which are agreed to be swept before sale or under the contract of sale. Money cannot be sold because money means legal tender and not the old coins which can be sold and purchased as the goods. Actionable claims are things that a person cannot make use of it but can be claimed by him by means of legal action such as death. Next is the transfer of ownership of goods. Like I transfer the ownership of goods to you. I don't give you the right, but I'm transferring that ownership of goods to you. So there must be transfer of ownership or an agreement to transfer the ownership of goods from the seller to the buyer, not the transfer of mere possession or limited interest, as in the case of pledge, lease, or hire purchase agreement. Fine. Like I have a property. I told you that I want to give that property on lease. Fine. I have just given the ownership of that particular property to you. I've transferred the ownership, that if you want to take that property on lease, you can take that. For that case, for that time period of time, after that period of time, you don't have the right to sell my property. Why? Because I'm just transferring the ownership. I'm not giving you the possession of each and everything. So if goods remain in the possession of the seller after sale transaction is over, the possession is with the seller, but ownership is with the buyer. So the act uses the term general property, implying that sale involves total ownership and not a specific right limited by the conditions. So delivery of goods refers to a voluntary transfer of possession of goods from one person to another. Delivery may be constructive or actual depending upon the circumstances of each case. A contract may provide for the immediate delivery of the goods for immediate payment of price or both. Alternatively, the delivery or payment may be made either by the installments or it can be postponed. Next is consideration is price. So in this process, in the Sales of Goods Act, the consideration between the two parties, that should be price, the money. So the consideration in a contract of sale has to be price, that is money. If goods are offered as the consideration for goods, it will not be amount to sale. It will be a barter system. Suppose I said to you that I want to give you the apparels I have in my outlet, and in the return of apparel, whatever business you are doing, like you have the business of rice, you can give me 10 kgs of rice for that particular apparel which I am giving to you. That will not be counted as in consideration because that will not amount to sale further. It will be called as a barter system. So if there is no consideration, it is just called as a gift. But where the goods are sold for definite amount of money, or either the price is paid partially or the fully cash in hand, that transaction is called a sale. So consideration is essential for valid contract as per Indian Contract Act 1872. It is the duty of a buyer who has received and appropriate the goods to pay a reasonable price according to section 2. And price means the money consideration for the goods or sale of goods. If price is not fixed, the contract is void ab initio. So the section 9 lays down the price may be fixed in a contract of sale. It can be fixed by the contract itself. It can be fixed in manner provided by the contract, such as the appointment of the valuer. Then it can be determined by course of dealings between the two parties, like the buyer and the seller. If the price is not capable of being fixed in any ways mentioned above, the buyer is bound to pay reasonable price. So what reasonable price is the question of fact dependent upon the circumstances of each particular case. It is not necessary that reasonable price should be equal to the market price. So section 10 makes it clear that if the third party appointed under the agreement to fix the price cannot or does not make such valuation, then agreement to sell goods will become void. And if the third party is prevented for this due to the buyer or the seller, the party not at fault can file a suit for damages against the party in fault. Next, the essential elements of valid contract. So all the essential elements of the valid contract must be present, such as competent parties, the parties whosoever are involved who are willing to do in the contract, free consent, legal object, and so on. The transfer of possession and ownership under the act has to be voluntary and not be tainted with frauds or dues. Any stipulation with respect to time is not deemed to be of essence to a contract of sale unless a different intention appears from the terms of contract. So these are the essentials of contract. Sales of Contract Act. So the next comes the formation of contract. So the Sales of Goods Act 1930, herein referred to as Act, is the law that governs the sales of goods in all the parts of India. So some of the various terms or you can say that these points comes under the formation of the contract. First one is the buyer and the seller. So as per the section 2(1) of the act, a buyer is someone who buys or has agreed to buy the goods. Since a sale constitutes a contract between the two parties, a buyer is one of the party of the contract. So the act defines the seller in section 213. A seller is someone who sells or has agreed to sell the goods. For a sales contract to come into existence, both the buyer and the seller must be defined by the act. These two terms represent the two parties of the sales contract. A faint difference between the definition of buyer and seller established by the act and the colloquial meaning of buyer and seller is that as per the act, even the person who agrees to buy or sell is qualified as a buyer or the seller. The actual transfer of goods does not have to take place for the identification of two parties of sale. So this is similar to this point, what we have done in essentials. Next comes the goods. So one of the most crucial terms to define is the goods that to be included in the contract of sales. The act defines the term goods in its section 2(7) as all the types of movable property. The section 2(7) of the act goes as follows. So every kind of movable property other than the actionable claims and money and includes the stock and shares, growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming the part of the land which are agreed to be swept before sale or under the contract of sale will be considered goods. So the goods that can maybe further understood into the following subtypes. First one, the existing goods, future goods, and contingent goods. So talking about the existing goods, the goods that are referred in the contract of sale are termed as an existing goods if they are present at the time of the contract. What they are saying, what existing goods are? So the goods that are referred to in the contract of sale as an existence at the present at the time of the contract, they are called the existing goods. In section 6 of the act, the existing goods are those goods which are in the legal possession or are owned by the seller at the time of formulation of contract of sale. So the existing goods can further be classified as specific goods. So according to section 214 of the act, all those goods that are identified and agreed upon when the contract of sale is formed, that are called the specific goods. For example, you want to sell your mobile phone online. You put an ad with its picture and information. A buyer agrees to sell and contract is formed. The mobile in this case, it's a specified good. So like I gave the identification and you agreed upon the same thing, that is the specific good. Then ascertained goods. So this is a type not defined by the law but by the judicial interpretation. This term is used for the specific goods which have selected from a larger set of goods. For example, you have 500 apples. Out of these 500 apples, you decide to sell 200 apples. Then to sell those 200 apples, you will need to separate them from the set of 500 apples. Hence, you specify that 200 apples from a larger group of unspecified apples. These 200 apples are now the ascertained goods. And the unascertained goods, these are the goods that have not been specifically identified, but have rather been felt to be selected from a larger group. For example, from your 500 apples, you decided to sell 200, but you don't specify which one you want to sell. A seller will have the liberty to choose any 200 apples from the lot. So these are hence called an ascertained goods. So existing goods presently here in the existent, under this they are the specific goods. You give the proper specification, identification of that good, ascertained goods and uncertain goods. Then comes the future goods. In section 2(6) of the act, the future goods have been defined as the goods that will either be manufactured or produced or required by the seller at the time of contract of sale is made. The contract for sale of future goods will never have the actual sale in it. It will always be an agreement to sell. For example, you have an apple orchard with apples in it. You agree to sell 1,000 apples to the buyer after the apples ripe. This is the sale that has to occur in future, but goods have been identified already and agreement is being made. So such goods are known as in future goods. And the contingent goods. Contingent goods are actually a subtype of future goods in the sense that in contingent goods, the actual sale is to be done either in the future. So these goods are a part of sale contract that has some contingency clause in it. For example, you can say, like if you sell your apples from your orchard when the trees are yet to produce apples, the apples are a contingent good. The sale is dependent on the condition of the tree, that the trees are able either to produce it or not. So that are the contingent goods. The goods have been identified as existing, future, and contingent. In existing, they are specified, certain, and uncertain goods. To go through these types of goods once. So next comes delivery. The delivery of goods signifies the voluntary transfer of possession from one person to another. The objective or the end result of such process which results in the goods coming into the possession of the buyer is the delivery process. The delivery could occur when the goods are transferred to a person other than the buyer, but who is authorized to hold on the behalf of goods. There are various forms of delivery. One is the actual delivery. If the goods are physically given into the possession of the buyer, the delivery is called an actual delivery. Like the dealing between you and me, that is the dealing between the delivery of goods between the buyer and the seller, that is the actual delivery. Constructive delivery. The transfer of goods can be done even when transfer is effective without a change in the possession or custody of goods. For example, a case of delivery by atonement or acknowledge will be constructive delivery. If you pick up a parcel on the behalf of your friend and agree to hold on it for him, it is a constructive delivery. For example, I being the seller, I delivered the goods to the buyer, but buyer was not available at that particular time. Buyer said, my friend, he will like take the parcel from you on my behalf. That's a partial delivery, the constructive delivery between the both. And next is the symbolic delivery. So this kind of delivery involves the delivery of the thing in the token of transfer of something. So whenever we say that I have a godown which is nearby my workplace, you can deliver that goods there. That is the symbolic delivery. For example, the key of godowns with the goods in it, when handed over to buyer, will constitute a symbolic delivery. So the next comes the document of title to goods. From section 2(4) of the Act, we can say that this includes the bill of loading, dock warrant, warehouse keeper certificate, railway receipt, multimodal transport document, warrant, or order for delivery of goods, and any other document used in the ordinary course of business as a proof of possession or control of goods, or authorizing or purporting to authorize, either by the endorsement or delivery, the goods, the possessor of the document to transfer or receive the goods thereby represented. So this is the document of title of goods. Like if I talk about the bill of lading, that is like when that's a document by a courier to acknowledge the receipt of the cargo for the shipment. And dock warrant when the goods are being, delivered through the river by the marine. Next comes the mercantile agent. So mercantile agent is someone who has authority in the customary course of business either to sell or consign goods under the contract on the behalf of one of the both parties. So mercantile agent, it's the third party person. You can either say a commission agent, an auctioneer, a broker, a dealer, an agent, a factor agent. That is called as a mercantile agent, the person who comes in between the dealing of the buyer and the seller. Property. So according to section 211 in the Act, property means ownership or the general property, that is all the ownership rights of the goods. A sale constitutes the transfer of ownership of the goods by the seller to the buyer or by an agreement of the same. Insolvent. According to section 2A, the act defines an insolvent person as someone who ceases to pay his debts in ordinary course of business or cannot pay his debts as they come due, whether he has committed an act of insolvency or not. Then price. So according to section 2N, in the act, the price is defined as the money, the consideration for the sales of goods, and quality of goods. The goods, quality of the goods here refer to as the state, the condition of the goods during that sales of contract act. So these are the various terms which are being used, which are being referred during the time of sales of goods act, which is buyer and seller, goods, delivery, document of title to goods, mercantile agent, property, insolvent, price, and quality of goods. So before moving to the next sale and agreement to sale, I just want to show you a short video. serious example again regarding the claims for the goods. See, that was the example that previously saw in the video. He sold that generator without the permission of the co-owner. So according to General Rule Section 27 of Sales of Goods Act, where goods are sold by a person who is not the owner therefore and who does not sell them under the authority or with the consent of the owner, or the buyer acquires no better title to goods than the seller had unless the owner of the goods is by his conduct precluded from denying the seller of authority to sell. And Section 27 is based on the English rule or maximum of Nemo, that it's basically just the transferability, a better title that he has himself. And that is the sale by one of the joint owner goods may be owned by more than one person. If one of the sole joint owner of the goods has sole possession of them by the permission of the co-owner, the property in the goods is transferred to any other person who buys them from any of the joint owner in the good faith and has no at the time of the contract of sale notice, then the seller has the authority to sell. Recording under, if I talk about section 32, if a buyer having bought or agreed to buy the goods obtains with the consent of the seller possession of the goods or the document of title of the goods, the delivery or transfer of that person or by a mercantile agent acting for him of the goods or the documents of title under any sale, pledge or disposition thereof of any person receiving the same in the good faith and without notice of any line or other right of original seller in respect of the goods shall have effect as if such the right did not exist. We've given an example like a plaintiff wants to sell his car to A who paid by check although who has given the possession. It was agreed that the property would not pass until the check was honored. So the check was dishonored, but A had resold the car to B, who had bought it without the knowledge of possession. So B resold it to the defendant. The plaintiff tried to recover the car from him. So here A, the original buyer, was in the possession with the consent of the owner. Hence, he could not pass a good title to B, who in return transferred it to the defendant. The defendant was therefore entitled to keep the car. And applying the same law to the case of generator, I believe that seller has made a contract sale of goods based on section 27. Then seller has his right according to section 27, which is based on the English rule maxima of Nemo, that quod not habet. Seller entitled for goods because he acted in the good faith and didn't know about the other owner. He was not aware about the code. As we can conclude, seller can claim the good from Badrul because he already made the payment and act in the good faith and did not know about the another owner. So through this video, the clarity on the concept of sales of goods sector is much very clear to all. So the next comes sale and agreement to sale. So a contract of sale, it's a generic term which includes both an actual and an agreement to sell. Section 4 provides that if the property in goods is transferred from seller to buyer under a contract, that is called a sale. When the transfer of property in the goods will take place in the future, or it's subject to some condition which has to be fulfilled yet, that agreement is called as an agreement to sell. So what sale is? Sale is generally, like according to section 4, when the property in the goods is transferred from seller to buyer, that is called the sale. And agreement to sell, when where the transfer of the property in the goods will take place in the future or is subject to some condition which has to be fulfilled, that is called as an agreement to sell. So a contract is formal or verbal agreement that is enforceable by the law. Every contract must have an agreement, but every agreement is not a contract. So the section 4 of Sales of Goods Act 1930 states, a contract of sales of goods is a contract whereby the seller either transfers or agrees to transfer the property in the goods to the buyer for a decided price. In section 4.4 of the Act, it is maintained that for an agreement to sale to become a sale, the time has to elapse or the condition has to be fulfilled, subject to which the property in the goods is to be transferred. So here we can also refer to as an executed contract of sale and non-executory type of sales also. So executed, you can say an executed contract is one that has been fully performed, and executory is one that has not fully performed. Something, you know, agreed upon remains to be done by one or both the parties. So sale. Here the property of goods is transferred at once to the buyer from the seller. The section 4.3 of the Act says, where under a contract of sale, the property in the goods is transferred to the seller, from the seller to the buyer, the contract is known as a sale. An agreement to sell, according to section 4.3, defines what an agreement to sell is. The objective of the agreement is to sell, transfer the goods at the future date once some contingent clauses in the agreement or certain conditions are satisfied. So elements in contract of sale: parties. At least two parties should be involved. There should be the presence of subject matter, the title of the subject matter, content, contract of sale, goods, consideration, movable item, price on which you are doing the contract, that should be fixed, that should be promised. Then transfer of property, the movable transferability of property, the all the elements of the valid contract as well. Then the difference between the sale and agreement to sell. Sale, where the property immediately transferred from the seller to buyer, is called sale. When the transfer of property in goods is to take place in future, that is agreement to sell, transferability. In contract of sale, property in the goods transfers from seller to buyer immediately, whereas in agreement to sell, property in goods does not transfer immediately. For example, X sold 10 bags of wheat to Y against payment of 3,000. Agreement to sell, X agrees to sell 10 bags of wheat to Y for rupees 3,000 after getting the stock type. Contract of sale, it's an executed, fully performed. Agreement of sale, it's an rather partially performed. Either one of the parties has to fulfill its obligations, or both the parties has to fulfill the obligations due. The seller can sue the buyer for case of breach of contract. The seller can sue the buyer only for the damages, but not for the price. Liability. Sale is liable for sales tax, whereas agreement to sale is not liable for sales tax, right? Seller has the right for resale, and seller has no right for resale in the sale, whereas agreement to seller has the right to resale that property. Possession. If the goods are destroyed in the sales, the loss is borne by the buyer, even though the goods are in the possession of the seller. Whereas in agreement to sell, the loss fall on the seller, even though the goods are in the possession of buyer. So these are the difference between sale and agreement to sell. Next comes sale and hire purchase. So talking about the hire purchase, it's the type of business arrangement in which the customer pays the cost of an asset in form of an initial down payment and an outstanding balance in installments. Whether it's monthly, quarterly, or yearly. So during the period, the ownership of an asset rests with the seller, that is hire vendor, until the customer, that is the hire purchaser, settles his entire liability. Further, the agreed installments includes the price plus installments on the asset provided on credit to the hire purchaser. In this way, the final amount that is being paid in the form of installments during the course of time and down payment made will be higher in the comparison to the cash down of an asset. So some of the characteristics of hire purchase system are ownership. The ownership of an asset is transferred to hire purchaser when he makes the payment to final installment and exercise the option of purchasing the asset. Like until or unless all the installments are not paid, the ownership is not being transferred. Installments. There is a preconditioning on the delivery of goods that hire purchase should make payments of the agreed installments. Down payment. There should be some specified down payment. For example, I want to buy a laptop which is worth rupees 50,000. So 20,000 I'll pay in advance, that is called as a down payment, and next 30,000 with interest I should be paying in the installments. And that criteria, until or unless I don't pay all the installments, that is called as a hire purchase. Possession. The possession of the asset is immediately transferred to the hire purchaser once the contract is entered in by the parties concerned. And repossession, and the hire purchaser defaults in the payment of installments, no matter if the installment is first or last, the hire vendor has the right to repossess the goods. And the difference between the both, meaning sale implies the transaction between buyer and seller, whereas hire purchase refers to formation of purchase in which the buyer acquires the asset by making the down payment. However, the entire purchase price of an asset can be paid over the stipulated time through the periodical installments. Governing Act of Sales, it's Sales of Goods Act 1930 and hire purchase is 1972. Timing of transfer of property in sale, it's immediate, and in hire purchase after the payment of all the installments. Position of buyer, the buyer's position is that of owner in the sales, whereas in the hire purchaser's position is that of bailee till he pays the final installment. Sale, lump sum amount, and a hire purchase, the installments, whether the monthly, quarterly, or yearly. In the sale, non-payment of amount, the seller can take the legal action, and in the hire purchase, the vendor can repossess the goods. And what treatment of the payment should be done in the sales regarding the price of the goods, and in hire purchase, higher charges for use of the asset until the purchase option is exercised by the hire purchaser. Termination, the buyer cannot terminate the contract, and in the hire purchase, the hire purchaser can terminate the contract by returning the asset to the vendor, has no liability to pay the installment in full. In sale, repair of goods can be done by the buyer, and in the hire purchase by the hire vendor. And resale, yes, the buyer can resell the goods in sale, whereas in hire purchase, the buyer does not enjoy the right to resell the goods unless or until he has paid all the full installment. So this was the difference between sales and hire purchase. So you can go through this PPT. We'll end up with today's topic. I'm giving you the polls. go through the polls. We will do the polls, and regarding the lecture, till then you can, go through the PPT as well. Today we have done the Contract of Sale Act 1930, its elements, the formation of the contract, the terms which are being used in these type of contract, then the sale and agreement to sell, the difference between the both, sale versus hire purchase, and the difference between the both. Thank you guys for today's lecture.